Taewoo was lost. He had been lost for the past 20 minutes, walking through corridors that all looked the same. The walls were made of some dark metal that reflected his face back at him. He looked tired. He looked scared. He looked like a man who was about to be very late to the most important event in human history. The Centennial Galactic Summit happened once every 100 years. Leaders from across the galaxy gathered to discuss trade, peace, and the future of 1,000 civilizations. Earth had received its first invitation only 10 years ago, after humans finally made contact with alien life. They were still newcomers. They were still nobody. And Taewoo was still lost. He worked as a translator for Earth's Galactic Relations Office. It was a small job. He translated documents, sat in the back of meetings, and tried not to embarrass himself in front of beings who had been traveling between stars when humans were still figuring out fire. He was not important. He was not special. He was just a 28-year-old man from Busan, who happened to be good at languages. His colleague Sujin had pushed him to come to the opening ceremony. "You need to see it with your own eyes," she had said. "This is history." Now he was going to miss history, because he took a wrong turn at the third corridor. Taewoo checked his communication device again. The map showed he was close to the Grand Assembly Hall, but every door he tried was locked or led to another empty hallway. The station was massive. It floated in neutral space, belonging to no empire, serving as a meeting place for all. Thousands of species walked its halls, and somehow none of them were around to give him directions. Finally, he found a door that opened. Light poured out. Sound followed. He heard voices, hundreds of them, speaking in languages he could not name. He stepped through and found himself at the back of the largest room he had ever seen. The Grand Assembly Hall stretched out before him like a mountain turned inside out. Seats rose in circles, layer after layer, climbing toward a ceiling that showed the stars themselves. Every seat was filled. Beings of all shapes and sizes sat watching a stage at the center. Some had scales, some had feathers, some had no bodies at all, just floating lights that hummed with energy. The air smelled like flowers and metal, and something electric that made his skin tingle. Taewoo's heart dropped. The ceremony had already started. A tall figure with blue skin stood on the stage, speaking words that echoed through the hall. He needed to find Earth's section. He needed to sit down before anyone noticed him. He scanned the rows. There, far to his left, he could see the small group of humans. Sujin was there, her face lit by the glow of her tablet. Hundreds of aliens sat between him and his people. He would have to walk in front of everyone. He would have to disturb the ceremony. No, there had to be another way. He looked around desperately. Most seats were taken, but near the front, almost at the very center of the hall, he spotted a single empty chair. It was next to a figure dressed in white and silver. The figure sat perfectly still, like a statue carved from ice. Taewoo could not see their face from this angle, but the seat was empty. That was all that mattered. He moved quickly. He kept his head down. He tried to make himself small, invisible. He was good at that. 28 years of being ordinary had taught him how to disappear in a crowd. He reached the empty seat. He was about to sit down when he realized something was wrong. The beings around him were different from those in the back. They carried staffs made of light and weapons that hummed with power. They looked at him with eyes that held centuries of authority. This was not a regular section. This was the sovereign circle, reserved for rulers, reserved for emperors and queens and beings who commanded entire star systems. Taewoo froze. He needed to leave. He needed to run. He needed to apologize and find another seat and hope that no one remembered his face. But before he could move, a hand grabbed his wrist. The grip was firm. The skin was pale, almost white, with thin silver lines running beneath the surface, like rivers on a map. The fingers were long and elegant, but strong. Tae-woo could not pull away. He looked up. The figure in white and silver had turned to face him. She was beautiful, in a way that hurt to look at. Her face was sharp and perfect, with high cheekbones and lips the color of winter roses. Her eyes were the most striking thing about her. They were silver, completely silver, with no whites and no pupils. They looked at him like they could see through his skin, through his bones, through every secret he had ever kept. She spoke. Her voice was soft, but it carried through the air like it owned every molecule. "You're seated with me." The words were in Korean, perfect Korean, with the accent of his grandmother's village. Tae-woo's brain stopped working. He stood there, his wrist still caught in her grip, his mouth open like a fish pulled from water. Around them, the hall had gone silent. The speaker on stage had stopped talking. Every eye, every sensor, every consciousness in the room had turned to look at them. Tae-woo knew who she was now. Everyone in the galaxy knew her face. Empress Vera of the Alari Dominion, ruler of 300 star systems, commander of the largest fleet ever assembled. She had lived for over 500 years. She had ended wars with a single word, and started them with a glance. She was not just powerful. She was power itself, given form, and dressed in white silk, and she was holding his hand. "Sit," she said. It was not a request. Tae-woo sat. The ceremony continued. The speaker resumed his words, but no one was listening anymore. Whispers spread through the hall like fire through dry grass. Tae-woo could feel them. He could feel every stare, every question, every judgment pressing against his back. He did not look at the Empress. He did not move. He barely breathed. He sat perfectly still, his hands folded in his lap, his eyes fixed on some point in the distance. His mind was screaming. Across the hall, in Earth's section, Sujin had dropped her tablet. She stared at him, with wide eyes and an open mouth. He could not read her lips from this distance, but he was fairly sure it was not polite. The ceremony lasted another hour. It felt like 1,000 years. When it finally ended, beings began to rise and move toward the exits. Tae-woo prepared to do the same. He would apologize. He would bow. He would run and never stop running until he reached Earth itself. But the Empress still had not released his wrist. "Stay," she said, without looking at him. Tae-woo stayed. The hall emptied. Guards in silver armor appeared around them, forming a protective circle. Other rulers passed by, some nodding to the Empress, others staring at Tae-woo with expressions he could not read. One being, a massive creature with 4 arms and a face full of teeth, laughed as it walked past. "Interesting choice, Vera," it said. "Very interesting." The Empress did not respond. When the hall was nearly empty, she finally turned to face Tae-woo fully. Her silver eyes studied him like he was a document written in a language she had never seen before. "What is your name?" she asked. "Tae-woo," he managed. His voice cracked. "My name is Tae-woo." "Tae-woo," she repeated. The name sounded different in her mouth. Older, more important. "You will come with me now." It was not a question. Tae-woo nodded. He did not know what was happening. He did not know why she had chosen him. He did not know if he would survive the night. But he followed her anyway. The Empress walked like the universe was built around her. Every step was measured. Every movement was precise. Her guards moved with her, their silver armor catching the light of passing stars through the corridor windows. Tae-woo walked behind her, trying to match her pace and failing. His heart had not stopped racing since the ceremony ended. His wrist still felt warm where she had held it. He kept his eyes on the floor, watching his feet move one after another, wondering if each step was bringing him closer to his death. They walked through corridors that grew more beautiful as they went deeper into the station. The walls changed from dark metal to something that looked like frozen light. Strange plants grew in alcoves, their leaves silver, and their flowers glowing soft blue. Music played somewhere, though Taewoo could not see where it came from. Finally, they reached a door that opened onto a balcony. Taewoo stepped through and forgot how to breathe. Below them was a garden made of stars. That was the only way his mind could describe it. Colors swirled in patterns that hurt his eyes and healed them at the same time. Nebulas twisted and danced. Points of light moved like living things. It was not real, he knew. It was some kind of projection, some alien technology beyond his understanding. But it looked real. It looked like the universe itself had been folded and placed inside this station for the Empress to enjoy. "Leave us," the Empress said. The guards hesitated. One of them, taller than the others, stepped forward. "Your Majesty, the human could be—" "Leave us." Her voice did not change. It did not grow louder or sharper, but the air itself seemed to grow colder. The guard bowed deeply and retreated. The door closed behind them. Taewoo was alone with the Empress of the Ilari Dominion. She walked to the edge of the balcony and looked down at the false garden. Taewoo stayed where he was, afraid to move, afraid to speak, afraid to exist too loudly in her presence. "You may breathe," she said. "I have not brought you here to execute you." Taewoo let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. "Thank you," he said. Then he wondered if that was the right thing to say. Should he bow? Should he kneel? He had read the protocols for meeting alien leaders, but none of them covered this situation. "You are confused," the Empress said. It was not a question. "Yes, Your Majesty." There was no point in lying. She turned to face him. In the light of the artificial nebula, her silver eyes seemed to glow from within. She studied him the way a scientist might study a new species of insect. "Do you know what I am, Taewoo?" "You are the Empress of the Ilari Dominion," he said carefully. "I am a telepath." The word hung in the air between them. Taewoo felt his stomach drop. Telepaths. He had read about them in his training documents. Some alien species could read minds. Some could sense emotions. Some could do things that humanity had no words for. "Do not worry," she continued. "I cannot read your thoughts. That is precisely why you are here." She gestured to a seat near the railing. Taewoo sat, grateful that his legs would not have to hold him up anymore. "Every being that enters my presence radiates emotion," the Empress explained. She remained standing, looking out at the garden. "Fear, greed, hatred, ambition. I feel them all, like heat from a fire. In 500 years, I have met millions of beings. Not one of them has stood near me without wanting something. Power, favor, my death, my alliance. They all want something." She paused. The silence stretched. "You did not." Taewoo blinked. "I'm sorry?" "In that hall, surrounded by the most powerful beings in the galaxy, you walked toward me. I felt nothing from you that I expected. No hunger for power. No dreams of using me for your own gain. No desire to see me fall." She turned to look at him. "Do you know what I felt instead?" Taewoo shook his head. "You were afraid of tripping over your own feet." She almost smiled. Almost. Her lips moved just slightly, and something warmed behind those silver eyes. "You were afraid of making noise, of disturbing the ceremony, of embarrassing your people." She tilted her head. "You were afraid of everything except me." Taewoo did not know what to say. She was right. He had been terrified in that hall, but not of her. He had been terrified of being seen, of being noticed, of being that clumsy human who ruined everything. "Humans are strange," the Empress said. She walked closer to him, and Taewoo had to fight the urge to lean back. "Your species is psychically silent. Did you know this?" "No, Your Majesty. Most species broadcast their emotions like radio signals. Even when they try to hide them, even when they lie with words, their minds betray them. But humans— She stopped in front of him. Humans are quiet. Your minds make no sound. To a telepath, you are like walking shadows. We know you are there, but we cannot see inside you. Taewoo processed this information slowly. It explained some things. Why some aliens seemed uncomfortable around humans. Why negotiations had been difficult in the early years of contact. "But you felt something from me," he said. "Yes." The Empress sat down across from him. It was strange to see her sit. It made her seem almost normal. Almost reachable. "I felt sincerity. It is rare, Taewoo. In 300 years of ruling, in 500 years of living, I have met perhaps 10 beings who were truly sincere, who wanted nothing from me except what they showed on their faces." "I just wanted to find a seat," Taewoo admitted. This time, she did smile. It was small and brief, like a crack in ice, but it was real. "I know. That is why I chose you." Chose him. The words echoed in his mind. She had chosen him. Not by accident, not by mistake. She had felt his simple, stupid, ordinary fear, and decided that he was worth keeping. "Why?" he asked. The question came out before he could stop it. The Empress was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, softer, tired perhaps. "Do you know what it is like to never be alone, yet always be lonely?" Taewoo did not answer. He sensed that she did not want him to. "Everyone who approaches me has a purpose, a plan, a secret desire. I can feel their calculations, their strategies, their lies. Even those who claim to love me love only what I represent: power, protection, position." She looked down at her hands. "I have not had a genuine conversation in 200 years. Taewoo felt something shift in his chest. It was strange. An hour ago, this woman had terrified him. She still did. But now he also felt something else. Something like sadness. Something like recognition. "I'm not important," he said quietly. "I'm just a translator. I came to this summit to take notes and stay out of the way." "Yes," the Empress agreed. "You are nobody. You have no power, no influence, no value in the political games of the galaxy." She looked at him. "That is precisely what makes you valuable to me." Below them, the artificial nebula continued its endless dance. Colors shifted and changed. Stars were born and died in seconds. "What happens now?" Taewoo finally asked. "Now?" The Empress stood. "Now you return to your delegation. You sleep if you can. Tomorrow the summit continues, and everyone in the galaxy will want to know who you are and why I chose you." She began to walk toward the door, then stopped. "They will not understand," she said without turning around. "They will think there is a strategy, a plan, a secret alliance. Let them think what they wish." "And what should I think?" Taewoo asked. She looked over her shoulder. Her silver eyes met his dark ones. "Think that perhaps in all the vastness of the universe, two beings found each other who were both looking for an empty seat." She left. Taewoo sat alone on the balcony for a long time. The false stars wheeled above him. The nebula painted his face in colors that had no name. He did not understand what had happened tonight. He did not understand what it meant or what would come next. But for the first time since arriving at the station, he did not feel lost. He felt found. Taewoo did not sleep that night. He lay in his small room in the human quarters and stared at the ceiling. His mind would not stop moving. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw silver. Silver eyes. Silver lines under pale skin. Silver armor reflecting the light of 1,000 stars. By morning, everything had changed. He knew this the moment he stepped outside his room. Sujin was waiting for him. She looked like she had not slept either. dark circles under her eyes, hair not quite as neat as usual, tablet clutched in her hands like a weapon. 17, she said. Good morning to you too, Taewoo replied. 17 requests for meetings. That's just from the major powers. I stopped counting the smaller delegations after 40. She fell into step beside him as he walked toward the dining hall. The Corvan Trade Federation wants to discuss mutual opportunities. The Syndicate of Seven wants to know your intentions toward their territories. 3 different intelligence agencies have asked to debrief you. Taewoo stopped walking. I just sat in a chair. You sat in the wrong chair, next to the right person, and now everyone thinks you're either a genius or a madman. Sujin grabbed his arm and pulled him into an empty corridor. Taewoo, what happened? What did she say to you? He thought about the balcony, the garden of stars, the quiet sadness in the Empress's voice. He thought about her words, about loneliness and sincerity and empty seats. Nothing important, he said. Sujin stared at him. Nothing important? You spent an hour alone with the most powerful being in the galaxy, and nothing important happened? We talked. About what? Being alone. Sujin opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Finally, she just shook her head. You're going to get us all killed, she muttered. You know that, right? Probably, Taewoo agreed. They walked to the dining hall together. It was a large space, filled with tables that adjusted their height and shape based on what species sat at them. The food dispensers could produce nearly any substance that any being might consider edible. The smell was strange, a mix of everything and nothing at once. Taewoo took his usual seat in the corner. He had chosen it on his first day because it was out of the way, hidden, safe. It was not safe anymore. Before he could even order his breakfast, beings began to approach. A tall creature with feathers and 3 eyes bowed and placed a small box on his table. A gift from the unified avian clans, it said. We hope for friendship with humanity. An entity that seemed to be made entirely of light flickered beside him. The Collective of Minds wishes to establish communication protocols with your person, it hummed. A small, furry being climbed onto his table and pushed a data chip toward him. My masters would pay greatly for any information about the Empress's inner thoughts, it whispered. Taewoo looked at the growing pile of gifts and requests on his table. He looked at the crowd forming around him. He looked at Sujin, who was trying to hold back a wave of alien diplomats. He missed being invisible. The day continued like this. Everywhere he went, beings followed. They offered him trade deals, alliance proposals, marriage contracts, and things he did not have words for. Some were polite, some were threatening. One being, a massive creature covered in scales, simply stared at him for 10 minutes before walking away without saying anything. By afternoon, Taewoo was exhausted. He had retreated to a small observation deck on the outer edge of the station, hoping to find peace. He sat by a window and watched real stars drift by. They seemed calmer than the artificial ones, more honest. He had almost relaxed when the door opened behind him. The being that entered was tall and broad, with dark blue skin and a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. He wore armor that was black instead of silver, decorated with symbols that pulsed with red light. His eyes were yellow, with pupils like slits. Taewoo recognized him from the ceremony. This was High Commander Orath, leader of the militant faction within the Ilari Dominion. He was known for his hatred of outside species. He was known for his challenges to the Empress's authority. He was known for making beings disappear. 2 guards entered behind him, blocking the exit. So, Orath said, his voice deep and rough, like stones grinding together. This is the creature that has captured our Empress's attention. Taewoo stood slowly. High Commander. You know who I am. Good. Orath walked closer. He was nearly twice Taewoo's height. He could have broken him like a dry branch. Then you know I do not play games. I am not playing any games. No? Orax smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. You expect me to believe that a primitive, psychically blind creature from a backwater planet accidentally wandered into the sovereign circle? That our empress, who has rejected the advances of kings and conquered generals, suddenly took interest in a translator? I was looking for a seat. You were looking for power. Orath grabbed the front of Taewoo's shirt and lifted him off the ground. I have watched the Empress for centuries. I have served the Dominion since before your species learned to walk upright. I will not allow some human to corrupt the throne. Taewoo's feet dangled in the air. He could not breathe properly. He could feel the strength in Orath's grip, the casual power that could crush him without effort. I don't want to corrupt anything, he managed to say. Your wants are irrelevant. Orath dropped him. Taewoo hit the ground hard. But I am not a monster. I believe in tradition. I believe in law. So I will give you a chance to prove yourself. He pulled out a device and pressed a button. A holographic image appeared in the air between them. It showed a circular arena, surrounded by floating platforms. Verith Kai, Orath said, the ancient trial of merit. Any being who wishes to stand in the sovereign circle must prove they are worthy. You were not invited. You did not prove yourself. You were simply pulled in by the Empress's whim. Taewoo got to his feet slowly. What are you saying? If you pass, you will have earned your place. No one will question your right to stand beside the Empress. Orath smiled again. If you fail, you will be removed from the station. Your people will be marked as cowards, and the Empress will be shown that her judgment has failed. And if I refuse, then you confirm what everyone already suspects, that humans are weak, that your species has no honor, that you are not worth the attention of the galaxy. Orath leaned close. And I will spend the next 100 years making sure every door in the universe is closed to your people. Taewoo's mind raced. He was not a warrior. He was not a diplomat. He was a translator who had gotten lost and sat in the wrong chair. How could he face an ancient alien trial? But he thought about Earth. He thought about his people, still struggling to find their place among the stars. He thought about what it would mean if he ran away. He thought about the Empress, sitting alone in a hall full of minds she could read, looking for someone who was simply honest. When is the trial? He asked. Orath's smile widened. Tomorrow. Sunrise by station time. He turned and walked toward the door. I suggest you spend tonight saying goodbye to your friends. You will not see them again. The door closed behind him. Taewoo stood alone in the observation deck. Outside the window, the stars continued their slow drift. They did not care about trials or empires, or one small human trying not to drown. An hour later, he received a message. It was from the Empress. I heard about Orath's challenge. You do not have to accept. I can declare you under Imperial protection. You can leave this station and go home. Then he typed his reply. I didn't come to space to hide. He sent it before he could change his mind. The reply came almost instantly. It was just one word. Good. That night, Sujin came to his room. She did not say anything. She just sat with him, helping him research the Verith Kai trial, looking for any advantage they could find. They found little. The trial was designed for warriors, for telepaths, for beings with powers humans did not possess. This is insane, Sujin said at midnight. Yes, Taewoo agreed. You're going to fail. Probably. Then why are you doing this? Taewoo thought about the question. He thought about the Garden of Stars, and the weight of loneliness, and the feeling of being found after being lost for so long. Because someone has to show them that we're not afraid. Then she nodded. Then let's make sure you don't die completely embarrassed. They worked through the night, and when the artificial sunrise came, Taewoo walked toward the arena with nothing but hope and the knowledge that sometimes the smallest beings can cast the longest shadows. The Arena of Echoes was older than human civilization. It floated in a separate section of the station, connected by a single bridge that seemed to be made of solidified light. Taewoo walked across it alone, feeling the weight of 1,000 eyes on his back. The arena itself was a circle of white stone, surrounded by floating platforms where spectators sat. Above, a dome of energy contained the space, separating it from the void of space beyond. Through the transparent walls, Taewoo could see stars watching like silent judges. The platforms were full. Word of the challenge had spread quickly. Every delegation at the summit had sent representatives. Taewoo spotted the human section near the back. Sujin was there, her hands clasped tight. She gave him a small nod. It was all she could do. On the highest platform, separated from all others, sat Empress Vera. She wore white and silver, as always. Her silver eyes followed Taewoo as he walked to the center of the arena. Orath was already there. He stood with his arms crossed, his yellow eyes burning with satisfaction. Around him, 3 objects floated in the air. They looked like doorways made of light, each a different color. Blue, red, gold. The Verithkai has 3 trials, Orath announced. His voice echoed through the arena. Wisdom, endurance, truth. Fail any one, and you are judged unworthy. He smiled at Taewoo. Shall we begin? Taewoo nodded. His throat was too dry to speak. The blue doorway floated forward. As it approached, it expanded, becoming large enough for a person to walk through. Beyond it, Taewoo could see only swirling mist. The trial of wisdom, Orath said. You will face the Mind Keeper, an intelligence older than most civilizations. It will test your intellect, your reasoning, your ability to think beyond your limitations. Most who enter never return. Taewoo looked at the doorway. The mist inside seemed to move, like something was waiting just beyond sight. How long do I have? As long as it takes, or as long as you survive. Taewoo stepped through. The world changed. He stood in an empty white space that stretched forever in all directions. There was no floor, no ceiling, no walls, just endless white. A voice spoke. It came from everywhere and nowhere. A human. Interesting. I have not tasted a human mind before. Something appeared before him. It had no fixed form. It shifted constantly, becoming shapes that made no sense, patterns that hurt to look at. Sometimes it looked like a face. Sometimes it looked like a storm. Sometimes it looked like nothing at all. I am the Mind Keeper, it said. I will ask you questions. If your answers satisfy me, you will live. If they do not, you will remain here forever. What kind of questions? Taewoo asked. All kinds. It began. The Mind Keeper asked him riddles wrapped in riddles. It asked him mathematical problems that had no solutions. It asked him philosophical questions about existence, consciousness, and the nature of reality. Each time Taewoo answered, the Mind Keeper twisted his words, found contradictions, pushed him deeper into confusion. An hour passed, or maybe a year. Time meant nothing in this white space. Taewoo's mind was exhausted. Every answer he gave was wrong, or the Mind Keeper made it wrong. He could feel himself losing, drowning in an ocean of impossible problems. Then he stopped. He looked at the shifting creature before him. He thought about what Sujin had told him the night before. Don't play their game, play your own. Can I ask you a question? Taewoo said. The Mind Keeper paused. Its forms stopped shifting for just a moment. That is not how this trial works. I know, but you said you've never met a human before. Aren't you curious? The silence stretched. Then, slowly, The creature reformed into something that almost looked like a person. What is your question? Why do you do this? Why do you spend eternity testing people who come through that door? The Mindkeeper was quiet for a long time. Because I was designed to. But do you endure it? Again, silence. When the Mindkeeper spoke again, its voice was different, smaller, almost confused. I do not know. No one has ever asked me that before. Tae-woo sat down, even though there was no ground. He sat anyway, and somehow it worked. My species is young, he said. We don't know much about the universe. We can't read minds. We can't solve impossible puzzles. We can barely make it across the galaxy without getting lost. I got lost yesterday. That's how this whole thing started. The Mindkeeper drifted closer. You are strange. Your mind makes no sound. I cannot see inside it. I know. That's what makes me interesting, right? For the first time, the Mindkeeper laughed. It was a strange sound, like bells and breaking glass and singing all at once. Yes, you are interesting. The white space began to fade. Color returned to the world. Tae-woo felt himself being pulled back toward the arena. Wait, he called out. Did I pass? The Mindkeeper's voice followed him, growing distant. You asked me a question I could not answer. That has never happened before. Go, human. Tell others that the Mindkeeper found you worthy. Tae-woo stumbled out of the blue doorway. The arena erupted in murmurs. He had been inside for only a few minutes by outside time, but everyone could see that something had changed. The doorway behind him dimmed and went dark. Orot's smile had disappeared. The trial of endurance, he said, his voice harder now. The red doorway floated forward. You will walk the path of flames. It will show you your deepest fears. The days after the trial passed in a blur of faces and voices. Tae-woo met with delegations from species he had only read about in reports. He shook hands, claws, tentacles, and things that had no name in any human language. He smiled until his face hurt, and talked until his voice grew rough. Earth's standing in the galaxy had changed overnight. The small delegation that had arrived hoping to be ignored was now at the center of attention. Trade proposals arrived by the hour. Alliance offers followed close behind. Even the beings who had laughed at humanity before now spoke to them with careful respect. Sujin managed most of it. She was better at politics than Tae-woo would ever be. She turned offers into negotiations and threats into opportunities. While she worked, Tae-woo retreated when he could, finding quiet corners of the station where he could breathe. He had not seen the Empress since the trial. On the final night of the summit, he received a message. It contained no words, only coordinates, a location deep within the station, in a section he had never visited. Tae-woo went alone. The corridors grew quieter as he walked. The walls changed from metal to something that looked like polished glass. Through them, he could see the stars, so close it felt like he could reach out and touch them. The coordinates led to a door. It opened as he approached. Inside was a room of windows. Every wall, the floor, the ceiling, all transparent. It felt like floating in space itself. In the center, surrounded by stars, stood Empress Vera. She was not wearing her usual white and silver. Instead, she wore something simpler, dark blue, almost black, with no jewels or decorations. She looked younger somehow, more real. You came, she said. You invited me, Tae-woo replied. She smiled. It was small, but genuine. Tae-woo was starting to learn the difference between her public smile and this one. Walk with me. They walked through the room of windows, their reflections moving beneath their feet like ghosts. The stars wheeled slowly around them, ancient light from ancient suns. You surprised them, Vera said. You surprised everyone, including me. I surprised myself, honestly. The trial of truth. Your answer. She stopped walking and turned to face him. No one has ever answered that way. Most beings boast about their species. They claim greatness, destiny, divine right. You admitted weakness. It was the truth. Yes, and that made it stronger than any lie. She studied his face. You understand something most beings never learn. True strength is not pretending you have no weakness. It is knowing your weakness and moving forward anyway. Taewoo did not know what to say. He was not used to being looked at like this. Like he was something worth studying, worth understanding. The summit ends tomorrow, Vera said. Your delegation will return to Earth. You will go back to your life as a translator, sitting in the back of rooms, trying not to be noticed. She said it like a question, though it was not. That was the plan, Taewoo admitted. Plans change. She began walking again. Taewoo followed. I would like to offer you a position. Imperial Liaison to Humanity. You would serve as the official bridge between the Ilari Dominion and your people. Taewoo stopped. Me? Why? Because you are honest, because you do not want power. Because in 500 years, you are the first being to make me laugh. She turned to look at him. And because I would like to continue our conversation. The offer hung in the air between them. Taewoo thought about what it would mean. He would have to live among aliens, in a world he barely understood. He would be caught between two civilizations, belonging fully to neither. It was terrifying. It was also the most interesting thing anyone had ever offered him. I have one condition, he said. Vera raised an eyebrow. You would make demands of an empress? Yes. He was surprised by his own courage. I won't be a symbol. I won't be a pet or a decoration for your court. If I take this position, I speak my mind, even to you, especially to you. He expected anger. He expected dismissal. He expected to be thrown out and never allowed to return. Instead, Vera smiled, a real smile, wide and warm, transforming her face into something almost human. That is precisely why I want you, she said. I have enough servants who tell me what I want to hear. I need someone who will tell me the truth, even when it is uncomfortable. She extended her hand. Taewoo looked at it. Pale skin, silver lines, long, elegant fingers. The same hand that had grabbed his wrist 3 days ago and changed his life forever. He took it. Her grip was warm, not cold as he had expected, real, present, alive. Then we have an agreement, she said. We have an agreement. They stood there for a moment, hands clasped, surrounded by stars. Two beings from opposite ends of the galaxy, finding common ground in a room made of windows. The next morning, the summit held its closing ceremony. The Grand Assembly Hall was full again, every seat taken by rulers and delegates and observers. Speeches were made. Treaties were signed. The future of the galaxy was discussed and debated and decided. Taewoo stood with the human delegation, but he knew this would be his last time among them as one of their own. Sujin stood beside him, her eyes red from lack of sleep and something else. You're really doing this, she said. Yes. You're going to miss Earth. You're going to miss home. I know. She was quiet for a moment. Then she grabbed him and pulled him into a hug, tight and fierce. Don't forget where you came from, she whispered. Don't forget who you are. I won't. She released him and stepped back, wiping her eyes quickly. Now go, before I change my mind and lock you in your room. Taewoo smiled. Then he turned and walked toward the front of the hall. The crowd parted before him. Whispers followed his every step. He could feel the weight of their attention, the questions in their minds. Who was this human? What did he want? Why was he walking toward the sovereign circle? The seats reserved for emperors and queens, for beings who commanded star systems and controlled armies. Empress Vera was already there, seated in her place of honor. She looked up as he approached. Her silver eyes met his dark ones. You're late, she said. I got lost again. She laughed. The sound echoed through the hall, and every being present turned to stare. They had never heard their empress laugh before. Not like this, not with genuine joy. She extended her hand. "Are you ready?" she asked. Taewoo thought about the question. Was he ready? Ready to leave his home, his people, his entire life behind? Ready to step into a world he barely understood, to face challenges he could not imagine? No, he was not ready. He would never be ready. But that had never stopped him before. "No," he admitted, "but I'll figure it out." He took her hand. She pulled him gently into the seat beside her. The same seat where this had all begun, 3 days ago, when a lost translator looking for an empty chair stumbled into the presence of an empress looking for an honest voice. The ceremony continued around them. Speeches were made. Decisions were announced. The galaxy moved forward, as it always did, toward an uncertain future. But in the sovereign circle, 2 beings sat together. One, an empress who had ruled for centuries and forgotten what it meant to be truly seen. The other, a human who had never expected to be seen at all. They did not know what the future would bring. They did not know what challenges awaited them, what enemies would rise against them, what trials they would face. But they knew they would not face them alone. And sometimes, that is enough. Outside the great windows of the station, the stars continued their endless dance. They had watched civilizations rise and fall. They had seen empires born and die. They had witnessed 1 billion stories unfold across 1 billion worlds. Now, they watched a new story begin. A human story. A story about a man who got lost and found something he never knew he was looking for. A story about an empress who had everything except someone to share it with. A story about 2 beings from different worlds who discovered that sometimes the greatest journeys begin with the smallest steps, with finding an empty seat and having the courage to sit down.